This is important. Opportunities to use the language in the classroom, in the school, and outside. If they only use it here in the classroom, it will never be enough. It will never be enough. And today, teachers must be creative in new ways. And one of those ways is figuring out how to encourage the use of the language outside the classroom. Now, there's all kinds of things. You can have kids text SMS to one another in the language. You can have them SMS to you. There's been research studies on using telephone text messages to learn languages. Okay, talk to their parents. It could be expensive, but that's another story. Music is a great way. And now, with technology, and I know that ELA offers so many opportunities for you and the teachers in your schools to learn about technology. You can reach so many more people. And the cost, it's a know-how. It's not a great cost. But what I want to talk about today is the importance of developing an identity. Developing an identity. Quite a few of you mentioned that a little bit earlier. But what does it mean to develop an identity? Okay, what does that mean to you? Individual identifies with, makes a connection with, makes an affective or emotional connection that says, oh, I like this, I want more. Okay? It develops connections with people who share those values. And I know that there are many community organizations where it might just happen that in 1 year there's 1 girl and 8 boys. And if you watch, you might see that that girl does not develop the same strength of identity as those 8 boys in 20 years from now. Because that girl just didn't have peers that she could associate with. So the first is a link between the individual and the social. So we have to find out what the individual student is interested in and what things they like to do as a group and individually, and what things they enjoy doing with others. So if your students, for example, take up a musical instrument that's not played in your community, and they begin really to become passionate about that instrument, they might end up with friends who play that instrument and go to concerts of that kind of instrument. And it's not bad because it's a great thing. But that means that that time is not being spent within the heritage language or culture or values or practices. Because what identity is the amount of time you spend connected to that which you value. And if you spend 3 hours a week in your heritage language school, that's not enough alone to develop an identity. So spend time with your family and you hear the language a little bit every day and maybe a lot on one of the weekend days. Now that's more time in a week that is being devoted to the language and the development of the identity. So, what are your students interested in outside of schoolwork? And what does your school or community organization do to make it possible for them to share that interest in that language? So, a foreign film festival. Could that be arranged through your school? Common meeting point, we travel together, we talk and we build connections. We build relationship and we build identity. Okay, I can't stress that enough. It's more than the quality of the teacher and the resources you use. It's got to be about building the identity, okay? Identity needs active engagement, and that means who do the students meet who speak English or another language or your heritage language, and make a connection with in and outside the classroom. The number one most important people are the family members, particularly an older sibling or a parent. Younger children identify with older brothers and sisters. The eldest often identifies with the mother and her father. If they speak the language and they speak it well and they use it, very powerful identity building tool. The teacher, the relationship they have with you, in particular the fun they have with you, that builds a positive identity, a positive connection that will last a long time. And many of you mentioned that they will come back and thank you many years later. But when they do, it means you made a difference in their lives. Okay, that's important. The textbook, how boring is it? If it's really boring, eventually they'll have fun talking about how boring it is. Okay, but we want to have at least some interesting materials. Friends. Do they have friends in the heritage language community? Many. I think that it would be very useful for you to invest in working with the brand new parents in your community. The brand new parents. And talking to them about the importance of reading to their children. About the importance of using as many words as they can, even if they've lost a lot. Okay? They will be building the identity before those children begin the heritage language. Okay? Movies, radio. Well, I know today with cable, you can get lots of programs in many languages, and that's wonderful. Can you make homework? Can you make some homework connected to some of those programs? TV or radio. That means that at least for those few minutes, in addition to what you do on the weekends or on the weekdays, they will also have a connection with the heritage language. And they will become aware. Okay? Every minute counts. Pen pals, if they can travel abroad and have a homestay, whether that homestay is with a family member, great opportunities. And I think one of the most important things is pleasure reading. If your students can read something without having to look in the dictionary for every third word, or without having to constantly ask family members, what does this mean, what does this mean, what does this mean? If they can just read simple stories for pleasure, it is a tremendous feeling of success. And that was what someone said earlier. You want the students to feel success. Being the same as some people and different from others. Okay, and not in a negative way. And this must be done through symbols and representations. So, an example, if your school has a uniform and my uniform is different, it shows that I go to a different school. Okay? We're easily identifiable. And that's what we're looking for. Symbols that will help people identify positively with something in their culture. This is a very tricky one because it's a balancing act. The tension between how much the student chooses and someone chooses for them. Okay? So there are two types of motivation. We call one instrumental. So you learn this for some purpose. The other is integrative, which means you learn it to belong. Sometimes family members might say, well, you have to go to this school because your uncle went to this school and your aunt went to this school and every living relative has gone to this school and you're not going to be the only one who didn't go to this school. Okay? So you go. but you go because someone decided for you. That's the only reason you're going. And when it becomes their choice, then it affects their identity positively. When it's not their choice, it affects their identity negatively.